I know that you didn't, not you, but the media didn't edit that and take words out?
That's a crazy level of paranoia. I have many, many issues with the New York Times, but when they quote someone directly, I trust the New York Times is quoting the words exactly as they can. They are not doctoring it. So,
but sometimes a clip online on Twitter.
No, what
they're leaving out words or
that's
tone.
Twitter. Well, yes, that's why you should read a newspaper instead of get it from social media.
Bill Maher just can't make up his mind about Trump. Claims to be anti-bubble, but falls for every mainstream media trap. The same guy who admits comedy is better in red states now wants us to believe the New York Times over our own eyes. Let's break down this liberal hypocrisy once and for all.
America, that's the beautiful part of our country, is that we can have kind of differences of opinion.
Exactly.
And still be okay. In Russia, you can't do that.
Especially when they're slighter differences than the major ones. Like, we both don't want Trump to be president.
Right.
Okay.
I do.
You do?
No.
And that's okay.
No, I don't. I don't know. If you want to be full?
Yeah.
Donald Trump, the thing is, in New York, for like
Queens boy,
he's a Queens boy. Donald Trump, when we were little kids, there was a festival on Cross Bay Boulevard.
What, like the Festival of San Gennaro? And he's Don Cheech dispensing favors to the, is that
we
really?
call it the Festival of January 6th. No, there was a festival when we were little kids, okay? Everybody, this is true, in Queens on Cross Bay Boulevard out in Howard Beach, there was a Howard Beach kind of, festival, like, fucking sausage and pepper stands and Ferris wheels and all that.
So where's Howard Beach like related to Jones Beach?
So Jones Beach is Long Island, Howard Beach is Queens.
So further in.
Howard Beach is like the Italian, real old school Italian neighborhood. And at that festival.
With a beach.
Right. I would always go, my dad would take me or my family. We would always go. And as little kids, John Gotti, old mob boss, that's where he lived, his stomping grounds. He owned Howard Beach. And Donald Trump would always be there. And John Gotti and Donald Trump, to a little 10-year-old kid, were awesome. Shaking hands, cotton candy, whatever you want. So the thing is, when you're from New York and the neighborhood I'm from, all of us have, like, at some point in our life, been around an event where Donald Trump has been there, and he is a very, very, very in-person, likable man.
Totally. I met him twice. Yes. Once, the Playboy Mansion, it was the Midsummer Night's Dream Party. Yeah. So everyone is in either lingerie or some sort of sleeping attire. Sure. And he had the power suit on.
Yes.
Walking around, did like a lap.
Yes.
In the power suit.
Yes.
And yes, I agree. He was, and I've heard so many people say this, in person, he was charming. In the sense that, and what is the definition of charming? Somebody who's interested in you.
Right.
And that's what we think is charming. And he was. It was like, how you doing? That is a way that a salesman ingratiates himself.
Right.
But yeah, he was not the monster we saw so many times,
Hey, Patriots, welcome back to another episode of Black Coffee Podcast, where we don't sugarcoat reality and we don't apologize for speaking the truth. Today, we're diving into something that's been bothering me for a while. Bill Maher's inconsistent stance on Donald Trump and how the mainstream media continues to distort reality to fit their narrative. If you caught Bill Maher's recent club, Random Podcast with Chris D'Elia, you probably noticed what I did. Maher can't seem to decide where he stands. 1 minute he's admitting Trump is charming in person, the next he's parroting the same tired mainstream media talking points. Let's break this down and talk about what's really happening here.
And again, this is just my choice. I'm not saying people at home should do this, but just my choice as a human being. If I don't know you personally, or if I've never met you, I don't really have an opinion on you. I can't go by the edited versions that the media shows me. Like, now I know you as Bill Maher. And I sat down with you for
totally
2 hours, and I'm like, you know what, Bill? I like you, man. I was in your presence. I like you. I can't tell you if I like you too, man. If I like Zelensky. You're moving your jeans like you have a fake leg. like it got blown off in Nam. And and I don't know Zelensky. I don't know Joe Biden. To be honest, don't even know Donald Trump. So I can't tell you I have an opinion on them. I have an opinion on Jimmy Kimmel.
Well,
I have an opinion on you, and I can tell you you're great guys because I've met you and I like you.
Okay, I like you too, but that's ridiculous. You absolutely can have an opinion on people in politics.
But how do I know?
Because there are certain things that they do that get reported in a newspaper, certain things that are incontrovertible, including quotes.
But how do I know that you didn't, not you, but the media didn't edit that and take words out?
That's a crazy level of paranoia. I have many, many issues with the New York Times, but when they quote someone directly, I trust the New York Times is quoting the words exactly as they can. They are not doctoring it. So,
but clip, sometimes a clip online on Twitter.
No, what
they're leaving out words or
that's
tone.
Twitter. Well, yes, that's why you should read a newspaper instead of get it from social media. They can fuck with it that way.
You know what's fascinating about Bill Maher? He claims to be the anti-bubble guy, someone who doesn't play for a team, who breaks through echo chambers. Yet when it comes to Trump, he falls right back into that comfortable liberal media bubble. Did you notice how when Chris D'Elia challenged him on forming opinions about people he's never met, Maher immediately defaulted to, but the New York Times quotes? This is exactly what's wrong with our discourse today, folks. The left has convinced themselves that reading carefully selected quotes in the New York Times gives them the full picture of who someone is. And they'll trust the New York Times implicitly when it reinforces their worldview, but then turn around and acknowledge that the same paper editorializes on every page with a very woke point of view. Does anyone else see the contradiction here? You can't claim the media is biased and then use that same media as your primary source to judge someone's character. It's intellectual dishonesty at its finest. Here's my fundamental problem with Bill Maher's approach, and frankly with the entire left's obsession with Trump. They care more about mean tweets than actual policy. They care more about how something is said than what is actually being done. Think about it. Under President Trump, we had peace deals in the Middle East that experts said were impossible. A secure southern border, energy independence, low inflation, rising wages, especially for working class Americans, no new foreign conflicts. Yet what did the media focus on? His tweets, his unfiltered way of speaking, the fact that he doesn't talk like a polished, focus group tested politician. When I'm looking at a president, I want someone who delivers results for the American people. I don't care if they hurt the feelings of the political establishment along the way. In fact, I consider that a bonus. Let's talk about something Chris D'Elia touched on that rings true. Trump is authentic. He's the same guy he's always been. That's not a bug. It's a feature. The political class is filled with people who transform themselves the moment they decide to run for office. They become these robotic teleprompter reading machines, carefully calculating every word to avoid offending anyone in their voter base. It's all an act. Trump broke that mold. He refused to play by Washington's rules. He spoke directly to the American people without the filter of political correctness. And guess what? People responded to that authenticity. When you look at Trump rallies, what do you see? You see energy. You see genuine enthusiasm. These aren't people being bussed in or paid to attend. These are Americans who feel, perhaps for the first time in their lives, that someone in Washington actually hears them. Bill Maher himself has admitted something important that undercuts his own Trump criticism. He said repeatedly that doing comedy shows in red states is more fun than in blue states. Why? Because conservatives can take a joke. The woke left has created an environment where comedy is dying. You can't joke about certain groups. You can't step outside increasingly narrow boundaries of acceptable speech. You're walking on eggshells constantly. This is why even liberals like Maher are finding themselves more comfortable around conservatives despite policy disagreements. At least we don't try to cancel people for making an edgy joke or having the wrong opinion, though irony is palpable. Maher criticizes Trump for his rhetoric while simultaneously acknowledging that the political environment created by his own side is joyless, humorless, and restrictive.
Now, what they can do in the New York Times, and what they do is editorialize in the article. It should be reserved for the editorial page, but they do it on the front page and every page. So does the New York Post in the opposite direction.
Okay.
One of them is conservative and just gives you the conservative point of view, and one of them slants everything toward the liberal, democratic, and very often very woke point of view.
Right.
So they will quote the accurate thing somebody says, but the editorial part comes in with, well, he said 4 things. Which one do we print? If you print one of them, it makes him sound stupid. If you print another one, maybe it sounds reasonable. Those kind of decisions are made, and they do affect how you see somebody. That's why you can't get news only from one source unless you want to be in a bubble. And I do not want to be in a bubble. And my whole success really is about breaking through that bubble and being the anti-bubble guy. I don't have a team.
Right.
That's why I don't have a lot of support in, like I will never get nominated for anything, or, never put me on a cover of a magazine, things like that, because that's like the establishment. I am not playing in there.
But that's a safer and better way to go. It's more
it's a sacrifice that's worth it, it is.
But you have what the valuable lesson that I was getting to that I learned with this sitcom pilot that failed.
Let's get real about how media manipulation works. It's not usually about outright fabricating quotes, though that happens too. More often it's about selective presentation. As Maher himself acknowledged, well, he said 4 things. Which one do we print? If you print one of them, it makes them sound stupid. If you print another one, maybe it sounds reasonable. This is exactly how the media shapes narratives. They don't have to lie outright. They just have to selectively present information, strip away context, and frame stories in a way that pushes their preferred narrative. And let's not forget the power of repetition. If you hear the same characterization of someone over and over again, it starts to feel true, even without evidence. The media has called Trump every name in the book: racist, sexist, fascist, authoritarian, without substantive proof. But through sheer repetition, they've convinced many Americans that these labels are accurate. What frustrates me most about Maher and the mainstream media's approach to Trump is the glaring double standard. When a Democrat makes a verbal gaffe or says something inappropriate, it's a minor story that disappears within a news cycle. When Trump does it, it's front page news for weeks. When Obama droned American citizens without due process, the media yawned. When Trump posted mean tweets, it was constitutional crisis time. When Biden's border policies created the worst immigration crisis in American history, we get sympathetic stories about challenges and complexities. When Trump enforced existing immigration law, he was literally Hitler. This double standard isn't subtle, folks. It's blatant, it's deliberate, and it's designed to shape public opinion. Here's what the Bill Mahers of the world will never understand. Trump's appeal isn't about policy details or political ideology. It's about representation for millions of Americans who felt ignored, dismissed, and mocked by coastal elites. Trump was the first political figure in generations who seemed to actually care about their concerns. When factories closed in, the Midwest and politicians of both parties shrugged and said, "Learn to code." Trump was the only one saying, "That's not good enough." When illegal immigration suppressed wages and strained public services in working class communities, and both parties ignored the problem, Trump was the only one saying, "We're going to fix this." When endless foreign wars drained our resources and cost American lives, Trump was the one saying, "America first." He connected with ordinary Americans in a way that sophisticated political operators couldn't understand. And that terrified him. The real divide in America isn't left versus right anymore. It's insiders versus outsiders. It's the political and media establishment versus the American people. Bill Maher, despite his claims of independence, is firmly part of that establishment. He might criticize the excesses of the woke left occasionally, but when push comes to shove, he aligns with the power structure. Trump, for all his wealth and fame, positioned himself as a champion of the outsiders. That's why the establishment hates him so viscerally. It's not about his policies or his personality. It's about the threat he represents to their control. At the end of the day, here's what matters: results, not rhetoric, not tweets, not whether someone speaks in the carefully sanitized language of Washington insiders. Under Trump, America was stronger, more prosperous, and more respected internationally. Our enemies feared us, our allies respected us, and American workers were seeing real wage growth for the first time in decades. Compare that to what we've seen since: rampant inflation, international embarrassments, a border completely out of our control, crime surging in our cities, our energy independence surrendered. So when Bill Maher and his media colleagues want to focus on mean tweets and hurt feelings, I have to ask, are your feelings more important than the well-being of the American people?
Okay, it didn't go, is what the valuable lesson I learned is that you cannot put your career in the hands of the media or the networks. You have to put it in the hands of your fans, and you've done an excellent job of that.
Yeah.
Is your fans are the ones who uphold you, because as you said, you're not getting nominated for these things, but
right.
fans don't give a crap.
They don't.
They're supporting you for you, and that's a beautiful thing.
And I think we both understand you could not possibly do both. I could not possibly speak the way I do that makes them such loyal fans.
Right.
And also be, with Meryl Streep at the Golden Globes. It's just, it's just two different universes. And I'm not picking on her, but I mean, there are people who are, woke approved and safe, and then there are people who are the opposite of that.
Sure.
As we look to the future, we need to learn from this disconnect. The American people aren't stupid. They can see through the media manipulation. They know when they're being talked down to. And they're sick of it. They want leaders who speak plainly, who prioritize American interests, and who deliver tangible results that improve their lives. They're tired of smooth-talking politicians who make grand promises on the campaign trail, only to serve the interests of donors and global elites once in office. Trump shattered that model. He showed that you can speak directly to the American people, bypass the media gatekeepers, and still win. That's his lasting legacy, regardless of what happens next. So here's my challenge to Bill Maher and others like him. Step outside your bubble, not just by reading the New York Post alongside the New York Times. Really step outside your comfort zone. Go to a Trump rally, not as a journalist looking for the craziest person to interview, but as an observer trying to understand what's happening. Talk to the everyday Americans who support Trump, not to convert them or mock them, but to listen. You might be surprised by what you find. These aren't the caricatures you see on CNN. They're your fellow Americans who simply have different priorities and perspectives. Until our media figures can do that, until they can approach half the country with something other than contempt, the division in America will only grow worse. That's all for today, Patriots. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and leave a comment letting me know your thoughts. The Black Coffee Podcast is committed to bringing you the perspectives the mainstream media won't touch. Until next time, stay free, stay patriotic, and keep fighting for the America we love.